I was halfway through licking an envelope when Hannah said, "Please don't invite your dad." The pen froze in my hand. I looked up from the dining table we'd converted into wedding command central. Guest list spreadsheets, menu cards, the cheap gold pens she'd impulse bought because they looked bridal. She stood at the sink, twisting the engagement ring I'd given her, the stone catching the late afternoon light like a flashing warning I didn't know how to read. "Come again?" I tried to keep it light. "You mean to the rehearsal dinner? He barely made my graduation. He won't come to this." "No," she said too quickly. "I mean at all." I laughed, because laughing seemed safer than the galloping feeling in my chest. "Hannah, he's still my father. You said yourself he's been complicated, unreliable." She wiped down a spotless counter. "I just want the day to feel calm. I don't want any wild cards." There are 1,000 ways to say "I hate your dad" without saying it, and she'd found a new one. My father could be a walking disaster. He cut out when I was 11, swept back in at 18 with a camera-ready smile and a gift card, dropped off the map, then resurfaced with an apology text and a selfie at a beach club I couldn't afford. We weren't estranged so much as stapled together by the world's sloppiest paperwork. Still, hearing my fiancé, I never got the hang of that. Ban him was like being told one of my organs had RSVP'd no. "I'll talk to him," I said. "Make sure he behaves." Her jaw tightened. "It's not just that." "What is it then?"
She didn't answer. She stared at the ring. Later, I'd replay that silence like a voicemail I was sure contained the answer. At the time, I just took it as more of the same pre-wedding stress, the million anxieties that breed when florists and seating charts collide. We mailed the invites. I didn't send one to my dad. 2 days later, a small storm broke. I'd been helping Hannah with her wedding website, linking registries and uploading engagement photos. A notification popped up from our joint big day email, kind of a clearinghouse for RSVPs and vendor invoices. I opened it because I was in the flow and because we were supposed to be radically transparent, Hannah's favorite phrase since our premarital counseling. There was a new message titled "Final payment for ring, per agreement." It was from a Gmail address with no name. I clicked more out of boredom than suspicion. The email was short. "Hi H, just confirming the last payment for the ring went through on Monday. As discussed, the apartment rent remains at the agreed rate through October. Please confirm receipt." There was an attached PDF, transaction history, for the ring, for our apartment. The ring that I'd saved for. The ring I'd told my mother I was proud to have paid off on my own. Except there, in black and white, transfers of $1,750 here, $1,000 there, with the memo lines "jewelers, balance," and "rent, 3B, was the reality. Someone else had been quietly funding our life. My first instinct was to delete it, pretend I hadn't seen it. You would be amazed at the things you will unsee to preserve a story you like. But something raw and hot rushed through me, a tide that pulled my finger away from the trash icon and toward the phone icon. I called the number at the bottom of the email. It rang twice. "Hey, sweetheart," a man said, warm, easy. "Everything okay?" I knew that voice. Not because I'd heard it every Christmas or called it for advice. Because it was the voice that asked if I was the man of the house now when he left. The voice that called me champ when it remembered my birthday 3 weeks late. "Dad?" Silence, then a thin, nervous laugh. Oh, hey, buddy. Buddy. My ribs felt too tight for my lungs. What is this email? He breathed into the phone, a sound I recognized from every apology he'd ever half made. We should talk in person. Talk now. Not on the phone, please. I hung up before I said anything that would make forgiveness impossible. Hannah came home later, cheeks windburnt from a yoga class she said she only liked because the teacher played Taylor Swift during Savasana. I met her at the door. I didn't know how to begin, so I didn't. I held up my phone like a cop presenting evidence. Her face did something I had never seen. A collapse. A glitch. She tried for a smile and landed on a flinch. Explain, I said. My voice sounded low and calm, which scared me more than yelling would have. Can we sit? She asked. Please. We sat. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and stared at the floor between us like the truth might be hiding in the carpet fibers. When I was 23, she began, I dated someone older. Define older, she swallowed. 50. It was complicated. He helped me with rent when I was finishing grad school. It was an arrangement, but it ended years ago. His name. She looked up then, eyes wet. It doesn't matter. It matters very much. She said his name. My father's name. She flinched when I flinched. I didn't know he was your dad at first, she rushed on, words tripping over each other. I swear, I met you after. I cut him off long before you and I got serious. Then he reached out. He said he wanted to help. He said he wanted to do one good thing. The ring, I said. The thing I'd watched sparkle on her hand while I told myself I was a provider. I told him no, she whispered, at first. But he insisted. He said it was for you, that he owed you. He said he wanted you to have a start he never gave you. And the apartment, the agreed rate. I was drowning, she said, when the landlord raised the rent. He said it could be temporary. Temporary until when? She didn't answer. Maybe because she didn't have one. Maybe because there isn't a calendar word for until the truth detonates. I wanted to tear the ring off her finger. I wanted to throw the lease in the street. I wanted to call my father and say the uglier version of, I hope you never feel safe in a room again. Instead, I stood up and went to the kitchen because rage needs a task. I filled a glass, watched the water line rise too high, spilled it, and cursed at nothing. Hannah's voice came softly behind me. I was going to tell you after the wedding. After? I turned, glass clutched in a fist. So I could kiss you in front of everyone while my father watched and thought that diamond is mine? I didn't use him for the ring, she said. He used me to feel better about himself. That's a Hallmark card for enabling. She cried then, quiet and awful. I didn't touch her. I couldn't. I slept on the couch and stared at the ceiling fan until the dawn made strips of light on the walls, like prison bars for people without the courage to leave. The rehearsal dinner was at my mother's favorite Italian place, a place with checkered tablecloths and the kind of marinara sauce that could broker peace treaties. We hadn't told anyone. We were both playing out some doomed script. Smile, clink, toast, pretend the ship wasn't taking on water. He came anyway. I saw him in the doorway, hair combed back, shirt ironed to a shine. He had the look of a man applying for a job he wasn't qualified for and assuming charisma would fill in the gaps. My mother's face went white. My uncle muttered something profane. Hannah's hand found mine under the table and squeezed like we were bracing for impact. "Champ," my father said, arms open like this was a reunion. "Hannah." He said her name like he owned it. Something in me snapped so cleanly, I swear I heard it. "Not here," my mother hissed, little voice, big threat. "Here," I said. I stood, my chair scraped back, and the whole restaurant turned toward us, forks arrested midair. "You paid for my fiancé's ring," I said to my father, "and our rent." A gasp rippled down the table like wind through a field. Hannah made a sound that was half sob, half apology. My father's smile faltered. "Son, please." "Don't son me," I said. "You bought yourself a front row seat to my life and called it love." He glanced at Hannah, and in that glance was a whole obscene story. Old agreements, new guilt, a ledger of favors dressed up as generosity. And maybe the worst part? Some twisted belief that this was his way of fixing us. Hannah stood too. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, voice shaking. "I thought if we just got to the wedding, it would stop." "Because marriage is a magic eraser?" I said. My uncle stood, because men like him think volume equals heroism. "Get out," he barked at my father. "You've done enough." My father held up his hands, a man surrendering after setting the fire. "I'll leave," he said. He looked at me. "I'm sorry." "You keep saying that," I said. "You keep making it worse." He left. The door swung shut behind him, and the restaurant exhaled, the way a body does after a held breath. Hannah and I didn't eat the entree. We didn't manage the polite toasts. We drove home separately, because the idea of sharing air felt like a betrayal of lungs everywhere, and I packed a bag. She watched me from the bedroom doorway, her ring hand bare. "I took it off," she said, like a peace offering. "You should keep it," I said. "It was never mine to give." I went to my mother's house and slept in my old room with the crooked poster of a band I didn't even like anymore. Every part of me ached the way muscles do after the wrong kind of workout. The kind that doesn't make you stronger, just reminds you that tearing is part of the process. The wedding was postponed indefinitely the next morning, a phrase that does a lot of heavy lifting. We called vendors. We called the venue. We didn't call each other. My mother made coffee that tasted like every comforting morning of my childhood, and I cried into it. A 32-year-old man sobbing over a mug, because sometimes you are your youngest self again. Hannah and I met a week later in a public park, neutral ground. She wore no makeup. I was tired. We sat on a bench like strangers and talked like people who once loved each other in a house that now belonged to someone else. "I told my therapist everything," she said. "She thinks I confuse help with love." "My therapist thinks I confuse forgiveness with pretending," I said. We smiled at that, a crooked, mutual acknowledgement of our broken tools. We didn't get back together. We didn't set a new date. She moved out of 3B. I found a smaller place where the rent came out of my account, and I could name every dollar. My father texted me long paragraphs, the kind that make your phone screen a wall of gray bubbles. He said he wanted to do better. He said he thought he was rebuilding a relationship with me by underwriting a future I hadn't asked him to price. I blocked him for a while. I unblocked him later. I'm still figuring out which boundaries are fences and which are prisons. Here is what I learned. Secrets don't disappear just because you dress them in white and book a DJ. Money is not neutral when it buys you silence. Love is not a knot you tie once. It's 1,000 small daily choices that either hold or fray. And you cannot outsource the cost of your own life without paying interest in shame. Sometimes I hold the phantom of that ring in my mind, the way you tongue the space where a tooth used to be. It reminds me of everything I mistake for permanence. It reminds me that sparkle can be a warning. It reminds me that I am not a man built by what other people pay for. Please don't invite your dad, Hannah had said. If I'm honest, the part of me that wanted a perfect day was tempted to obey without asking why. I'm glad I asked. I wish I'd asked sooner. I wish all of us had told the ugliest parts first to see if we could stand them together.
There won't be a rehearsal dinner from hell for us again. But if there ever is another wedding in my future, the first invitations I'll send will be to the truth and to the version of myself that isn't afraid to hear it.